to relax, cause God knows I gotta spit tracks with hot facts. One who reacts without thinking can have another person just be dead and stinking, blinking as thought travels fast, telling us to ignore the Constitution's past. My lyrics outlast liars' lies and the confusion that they supply, trying to make you say don't try or even take a question and say why, ask why. See, they try to multiply because they want their money just to be on high. See, they got the voodoo, and that's what they're trying to see right through you.
What's up, y'all? Incomplete. Heaven can't wait.
They will just flip, steal you.
Happy Resurrection Sunday. Heaven can't wait, but only God knows me. What's up, y'all? It's Eric Taylor, BigEAstro. Sorry, I couldn't get my tracks together. You know, I normally like to start with a little freestyle for my guests, but tonight I've got someone really special. This is going to be fun. Welcome to my Knowledge of Astrology podcast, episode 329. Can you imagine? Well, tonight I've got a millionaire mindset and flow coach and the founder of Yes God Wellness, who really helps women with their health and womb wellness. I present to you tonight, Miss Megan Macphearson. Megan, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
I am amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm so excited to have you on this powerful day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's been hijacked in a lot of ways, but I think we are coming with it with the right mindset and intention. So can you tell us what is Yes God Wellness? Because that's intriguing to me. And I love the name.
Yes, God, absolutely. So my business started back in 2017. And interestingly enough, it did not start as Yes God Wellness. It actually started as the Honey Pot. Because as you said, I was really focused on womb wellness, yoni steaming, different herbs to help women naturally deal with things such as fibroids, cysts, BV, healing postpartum. And what happened was one day in the mail, I received a cease and desist letter from the Honey Pot Company.
Oh,
She has a brand that's in Target. I actually know her. I've never met her, but she reached out to me, or someone from her team reached out to me, and it was kind of amicable. But basically, it was like, "Look, chick, you can't be using the Honey Pot. That's my brand." And so, yes, God was just something that I always naturally said in my speech. For me, it was a sign of gratitude. It was just a sign of always acknowledging God and always just being affirmative. And so when I was thinking of what else I could change my business name to,
right.
That was the natural answer, because it was like, well, I always say Yes God anyways. I'm pretty much known for that. So why don't I just change it to Yes God Wellness? And God has continued and continues to amaze and wonder me in the ways that Yes God has been so relevant and continues to be so relevant in my work and my spiritual journey and in the way that I serve the world. So yeah, it's been amazing.
I love that. And you know what? That sometimes these changes, and that's what I always say to my audience, we have to learn to get comfortable with change and being uncomfortable, because that's where the magic in God really is. So you just tapped into who you already authentically were.
Exactly.
So, and that happened with me, even though no one had the name. I started off, and it was still authentic to me because it was my last name, right? Taylor, but it was tailored to you coaching. And I originally started off as like a, relationship coach, which I still do, astrology, but I also used to do chronic illness coaching. And because I went through a chronic illness myself since 2013, I got valley fever. But I realized the astrology started being the dominant part of it. So then I was like, I need to rebrand, because the Tailored to Coaching doesn't tell you really that I do astrology. Right. And so my nickname since I was 6 years old was Big E, because I was in a basketball league. I used to play basketball every summer up in Martha's Vineyard. And I had a big mouth, big feet, and I was the shortest kid in the league. So I could barely reach the hoop. And the coach named me, my name is Eric. So he named me Big E after the famous basketball player Elvin Hayes. And he was like, yo, that's the Big E, Big E. So everybody knew me as Big E. And then I was like, okay, E connects to eternal life, the earth and energy and all this stuff. So I was like, Big E astrology. And then,
Mhm.
so I was
Yes,
like, yes, God.
yes. I love it. I love it.
That's so great. So I want to really first start off with, what do you mean by millionaire mindset? Like, tell people all the things that play into that and how you help your clients one-on-one, or if you do groups, and share that with the audience, because I think it's powerful.
Yeah. So I have always been like a personal development, spiritual development nerd. And I study a lot of different works of a lot of different people. I also have a theologic background.
Oh, wow.
And I did a year of divinity school at Shaw University. And one of the things that within this last year, I would say had really kind of started to understand was that I have to, or anyone has to, give themselves the identity of their ideal version first internally in their self concept before they will see it come to fruition. Okay. So there's a metaphor I always like to use is you can't see a smiling face in the mirror until you smile first. Right. So,
Amen. I
yes,
love that.
God. I actually did kind of like a joke on TikTok. I made this video about, hey, I part of Millionaires Anonymous, like, hey, I'm a new money millionaire. I have, all this money now. I have all these issues. Like, how do I, and kind of made a spoof off of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that video took off and went viral. And so I kind of
congrats on that, right?
Thank
I'm
you.
still waiting for one of my videos to go viral.
It'll happen when it's supposed to happen,
I know that's right.
Because I had spent literally months before that, like efforting and trying to make sure I was posting 3 times a day, posting my content pillars, like all the advice that they give you about,
Yes.
do. And this is why I'm so passionate. And I really in real time am learning, like, to be able to be in the flow is more so about leaning from your heart, doing things that you are interested in and that you enjoy versus what your brain tells you should do and you must do to get certain results. So I have been life coaching for about 5 years. The womb wellness kind of naturally turned into life coaching because a lot of women were coming to me telling me, about their background with their womb issues. And, I am a holistic health practitioner. And so anything that's energetic that you have going on is going to turn into a physical ailment unless you are able to process that trauma out.
Amen.
Which is what I was noticing with a lot of my clients. And so so the two kind of have merged lanes now. And now I kind of use the millionaire hook. And I really talk about really just things I've learned through studying over the years, through working with clients, through working on myself first and foremost in my own life, through being a person who has integrity and who is interested and curious about becoming a better person and not just being a defensive person and a victim of circumstance, but actually understanding that I have a divinity within me that allows me to create my circumstance. And that same concept, I got to smile in the mirror before the mirror smiles back at me. So really being in alignment with the type of person, the identity of my best version. So yeah, that's how we got here.
I love that so much. Now, listen, Megan and everybody, hello in the chat. She's going to get to you guys. So if you guys start to think of any questions you want to ask her, especially about womb wellness or just having, ways to deal with trauma and changing your mindset, bring it up and ask it now. But I've got to get to your astrology. Miss Megan is a Sagittarius sun, a Gemini moon, and a Taurus rising. And so that's so powerful in the sense that, number one, my wife's a Taurus rising, but two, having the Sagittarius sun in 8th house and you deal with womb wellness And, you can see a lot of things there in the eighth house, but one thing you could see are doulas and midwives, death doulas, right? It's sudden events and it's like pain, trauma, crisis. The eighth house is, pretty intense, power, control, sex. And so when people have a sun or a moon in the eighth house, they're going to be into, at some point in their lives, whether they really like it or not, they're going to be into the esoteric and occult knowledge and herbs and things like that. So when you talk about wellness and holistic stuff, how important in your life and even in the work you do with your clients and specifically women in the womb health, how important are herbs and even herbs and or crystals and stuff in your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Very important. I have crystals all over my house. I kind of started there, like I said, in my own personal development. I read the book Sacred Woman by Queen Afua. And that was a very intense practice of going through initiation. And one of the initial activities that she had in her book was to go through your kind of lifeline from your womb's perspective.
Okay.
And that was really, really powerful to just kind of consider and reflect on the partners and the dynamics and things like that. But what the catalyst to kind of catapult me into this space was actually I had a birthing trauma when I was giving birth to my son. In the hospital. They basically were dismissing me, telling me, "Hey, here's a prescription for Ambien. Go home, even though you're 7 centimeters dilated." And I basically, that was really traumatic. And I basically refused to sign the discharge paperwork, and I had him right there in triage. But that trauma kind of pushed me to kind of empower myself to say to myself, how can I never be in this position again? How can I never be at the mercy of these types of establishments that clearly don't care about me? And so on that quest to kind of become natural and holistic, I got into veganism, got into a bunch of different things, and yoni steaming was one of the things that I found. And I was already kind of into different herbs for teas and wellness and to kind of manage my own health. But herbs for yoni steaming was something that I kind of just dove headfirst into. Like I said, for myself, I kind of.
No, wait. I got to raise my hand. Being the man here, and we're going to get to at least some ladies in the chat. I want you to read the chat. But okay, the audience may not know. What's a yoni and what's yoni steaming?
Yes, God. Okay. So yoni, yoni is the Sanskrit word for the womb. Okay. And the womb is not just a physical organ. Okay. It's not just the physical organ that births human being. Every human being on this planet has come through a womb. Okay. Every natural human being.
Come through that portal, right?
Come through that portal, right? So, but the yoni is also an energetic place. It's a space where we create. It's a space where we hold on to a lot of that trauma. We hold on to unresolved emotions. And so yoni steaming is an ancient technique that has been traced to be practiced on every continent on the world for centuries and centuries. And essentially it involves a woman having herself elevated over a pot of herbs that is steaming. So the health properties and the metaphysical properties from the herbs are able to kind of access that portal. And the best way I can describe a yoni steam, I've tried to describe it in words, and I've had clients tell me that it just feels like they just feel lighter afterwards.
Okay.
But there's actually a communication that happens with the herbs and the yoni. There's a lot of information being received from the woman, and then there's also trauma and things being released from the woman at the same time. So it's almost like a breathing thing. Inhale, exhale.
And so a woman is actually naked when she leans over the pot, right?
Yeah, she doesn't have any underwear on. Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, just want to,
Yes, God.
I know it, but I don't know it because I'm not a woman.
Yeah.
But I just think that clarification is important, and I can imagine. Are there different recipes of herbs to use for different traumas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I have my herbal blends. I actually have 7 different blends.
Wow.
And there are certain herbs that I use in several of my blends that are really great kind of just overall.
Right.
But I have my abundance blend is really amazing for fertility or regulating cycles. And then I
Wow.
have a clarity blend that is great for mental clarity and mental health. I have a delicacy blend that is specifically for postpartum or post abortion or post miscarriage, any type of loss. I
That's
have a pure,
incredible.
thank you.
I
I have
had
a,
see, I had no idea that it was that intricate. And when I've only heard of it, no one has ever explained. And even right now, me asking you this question, it was just out of my own curiosity because no one's ever told
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and different practitioners have different blends and they kind of go
Yeah.
through their own kind of way to do it. But for me, I essentially, so how I started it was I would have women come into my home when I was in Durham, North Carolina, and I would just do them a custom blend. I would say, hey, what's going on? What are you steaming for? They would tell me, and I would kind of go in my herbal medicine shelf and put them together a custom blend. After a few months of that, I started to kind of pick out the top things that women were steaming for. And I went
Mm.
ahead and created a product line because there were women now all over the world actually wanting to steam that didn't have access to me. And so I said, okay, well, I'll create the herbal blends for you. I'll do a tutorial to show you how to steam at home, which by the way got 4.6 million views on YouTube, went viral because there's a lot of perverts over
I know.
it.
Okay. Out of the 4.6, I hate to tell you, Megan,
I know.
I think 4 million were men.
Exactly, and that's fine.
No,
YouTube
no.
send me a nice check for that. That's
Yeah,
fine.
but it's beautiful, right? That through your own exploration, you
Mhm.
turned a sort of serious trauma in giving birth in the hospital with your son and all that. And trust me, my wife and I went through plenty of things like that. I think that just for the audience to know, there is a lot of medical racism. I'm just going to call it what it is
Big time.
against Black women. And
Yes.
my wife was hemorrhaging. She was hemorrhaging after a pregnancy, and they didn't believe her. Right? They
Mhm.
think Black people and Black women are superheroes, and that
Mhm.
they don't feel pain or anything like that. And then them not believing her 2 hours later turned into an episode of Grey's Anatomy. And I thought I was going to lose my wife after giving birth to twins, and I was going to be a single dad of 4 sons.
Mm.
So what you did, I love that. And can I ask you this though? And then yes, we are going to get to the chat. I want to ask you this. Um, with the different herbal blends and all that, is there one set time of duration, or is it just when the woman feels like she's had enough or done, or the
Mhm.
recommendations depending on each herbal blend of duration of time?
Yeah. So I have always been very natural in my approach. I know there are some practitioners who actually keep a heat source under the pot and kind of allow or whatever their recommendation is. I have always done it naturally where we take it off the fire, we put it under, and then once it cools completely down, it's time to get up. Now, I have had the experience where certain women say it gets cool after 25 minutes. Other women say it's still hot after 50 minutes. And this is
Oh
to
wow.
illustrate the intuitiveness of herbs, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like the herbs know what the woman needs. And so,
Oh, say it, girl. I love that.
yeah, so it's very interesting, but I have always kind of been, I don't like to force things. So I
Yeah.
feel like keeping that fire under it is a force. So I
Okay.
like to just kind of let it be what it's going to be and let each woman have their own individual experience. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, Megan. Now let's go to the chat. Why don't
Yes,
you read who's here, see what their comments
absolutely.
and questions are, and
Okay. Perfect. So Rose Gold says, so excited for this one. Thank you, Rose Gold.
hey, Rose Gold.
Um, Gigi the Empress says, hey, family. Hey, girl.
What's up, Gigi?
Michelle Summerlin Grace is waving Winchester 27 curse present for short time. I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, hello, welcome. Think she's
Chantel,
new.
Chantel Jones, Big B, hey fam.
Hey, Chantel.
CC Naturally 29, great grand day all. Hey, hey.
Happy
Um,
Resurrection Sunday to you guys.
yes, Janae Ophucus says, E, what up, fam? What the word, B?
What's
Sounds
up?
like a fellow New Yorker. Alana, your beautiful wife, says, good evening. All so thankful to be here this Resurrection Sunday. Blessings to all. Amanda Lee 33 Creation says hello. Amber sends a heart.
Oh, hey, Amanda. Welcome back. Okay.
And then Alana says, this is interesting. I had never thought of it as a spiritual practice. I always thought of it as hygienic. I will have to give it a try. We need to discuss the mechanics of it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Amber says, I think doctors in general don't know a lot about herbs. Like they cure a lot of stuff. Yeah. And we got to be careful with saying that for the FDA purposes. But yes, it really does. Like I have tons of on my Instagram page, which is Yes God Wellness, I have a little highlight called receipts, and I have tons of reviews from different women how fibroids were released. One woman I actually did an interview with, they had scheduled her for surgery, and this has happened to a couple of my clients. They had scheduled her for surgery to remove her fibroids. She went on a steaming protocol, and when they went in to do the surgery, the fibroids were gone.
Okay, so give me an example, because this I love, like to get in the in the weeds of this. When you say a protocol, would that be something once, twice, 3 times a week, and for how long?
Yeah. So I depending on, I actually have a V-Steam cheat sheet that I should probably pull up. I haven't looked at it in years, but I think it goes out automatically in my email sequence when you purchase products. But essentially, if you're dealing with something chronic like that, I think the recommendation is to do it. You should be steaming at least 3 to 4 times per week.
Okay.
For at least 4 weeks to really give your body a chance to reset. And then also, the thing with steaming and how it ties so beautifully and how God has such a great sense of humor is that, yes, part of it is the physical, the healing benefits of herbs, but also the act of yoni steaming actually forces a woman to sit down and be still with herself. Right?
Oh, there you go.
A big problem doing that. And so what happens when women or people in general, but especially women, sit down and are still with themselves, they actually create the space for themselves to process those traumas and process those emotions out. And so what happens is when you prescribe, hey, sit down and be still with yourself at least 3 to 4 times a week, amazing things happen. So
the intuition increases, mental clarity.
All of it.
Oh, that's so wow, Megan, I love this. Okay, that is so awesome. Now, okay, this is what's interesting, because this is like all so new to me. So my Virgo mind is like, right? So can women do yoni steaming when they're actually pregnant?
So, okay. So not unless you want to have that baby. So, however, though,
okay.
now there are certain cultures, and there's a couple more comments I'm going to read after this. There are certain cultures who actually recommend it to onset labor. So when you're 37 weeks or more, and if you want to kind of encourage your labor to happen, you can go ahead and do a yoni steam, and that kind of encourages cervical opening and kind of getting the process.
Good to know. And listen, we got to share this with the audience, right? That's why this is knowledge is love. I don't want people yoni steaming and they're only 6 months pregnant.
No, please don't do that.
Okay, good. So now we know, you guys. Let's wait to like 37, 38 weeks, and then we could get the. But that's really cool, though, that can activate that.
Yes. Yeah. Because again, it is an opening of that portal, right? And the thing is that, are we opening it to release emotions or a baby? Either way, it's an opening. So we have to be mindful that we are in a position or in a.
So I want you to get back to the chat, but I got to ask this, and then we can kind of get back to some of the mindset and flow stuff. But this is kind of important to ask. Do you specifically, and have you worked with clients, and are these different or special herbs? Because we were talking about trauma, dealing with women who have lost a child recently or have experienced date rape or rape.
Yes, absolutely. So I have 2 particular blends that deal with both those issues. Delicacy actually helps to fortify the womb space physically.
Okay.
And then I have a blend called Victorious that is actually specifically formulated for trauma release.
Mm,
And that one has white sage in it, which
okay.
actually helps to kind of go in and cleanse the space, and renew the space. So yes, absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
that's, that is a real thing that
Yes.
unfortunately way too many women have experienced. And to me, that sounds like a beautiful practice
Mhm.
that can realign them, recenter them, and start the process of really kind of transcending that trauma and progressing through it and past it. So that's beautiful. That's I'm glad you do that. And that was something that I was just like, I wonder, you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? Okay, so let's see what
absolutely.
else people are commenting on.
All right. So Gigi the Empress says, "Hi Megan, hi Gigi. I have heard that the yoni is a space and doesn't relate to the actual organ exactly, and that men can connect to the space. That it would help them to help mother wounds and relationship wounds. Wow, that's powerful. So yes, I actually have had some men actually come to steam as well. And again, it is an energy.
Really?
Yeah. Mhm.
Now, wait. No. Now, how do we do it? Are we butt naked too?
Same way.
And I just drop it down and I'm just hanging over the pot?
You're hanging out, you're just hanging and dangling right over the pot.
Wow. Okay
Yeah,
now. Now
yeah.
wait,
No,
now are there different now?
well, think about the chakras, right? Because
Yes,
we
of
have
course.
our root chakra, we
Yeah.
have our, our sacral, we have, I don't remember on the top of my
Solar
head.
plexus, root,
Solar plexus, I
sacral, yeah.
should. Yes, yes.
All those
And
lower
so,
chakras. So yeah.
yeah, so the root chakra is in the same place on everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the first place that the yoni semen, and that's why it's so important and special for people who have had sexual abuse and sexual trauma, because
Mm.
that is the seat of safety and survival. And so being able to access that and offer that type of support and healing through those herbs can be really, really powerful.
So
Yes.
now wait. Now for the fellas now, brothers want to know like, do you have some different herbs for us? I don't want the feminine herbs.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got
I
some
do.
stronger herbs. Oh, you doing some ashwagandha? What you giving me?
Well, you know what? It's actually what is it? It's something saw. It's in my garage. I don't use it often,
Okay,
obviously.
okay. That's
Not
all
many
right.
men come, but
But they are
um,
different from the late from ones for the
yes.
women. Okay,
Mhm,
that's all.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's wow. You're opening up. See, this is why I had to have you on. But I love the knowledge because, and to be honest with you, being the Taurus rising and then the Sag Sun in eighth house, you're really connected all this stuff, right? The herbs,
Yes.
tapping into the herbs and crystals, helping people with trauma.
Yeah.
That's all eighth house stuff. So thank you. That this is really
Yeah.
powerful. So now share with the audience, right? Everything's down below in the description, but share with them the YouTube, the IG, but your website and how they can book consultations with you or actually purchase your herbs.
Absolutely. Yep. So for all of my like services, I have a stand store. My stand store link is in my IG. It's just Yes God stand store / Yes God Wellness. And I offer the I do free consultations for life coaching if anyone's interested in that.
Okay.
And then I also on that same link have a free quiz for any woman who's interested in yoni steaming. She
Wow.
goes through and she answers a series of questions about where she is, and then based on her answers she will receive feedback on which herbs and which regimen would be best for her to proceed.
Oh, that's so helpful. Wow. I love that.
Yep.
That's awesome. Oh, I
Yeah.
got a quick question about that though.
Okay.
What about the ladies that are suffering with that menopause? Are
Yes.
there
Yes.
specific yoni steamings for menopause?
There are, yep. So I have a blend called Refresh, and the
Mm,
Refresh blend helps with the libido, helps with the vaginal dryness, helps with
okay.
the hot flashes. That one has slippery elm bark in it and a couple other herbs that are super
Love the
used.
slippery elm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. That's so powerful. Yeah. See,
yeah,
and that's what's so great because, you know, we use traditional Chinese medicine and herbs and stuff like that. And, they're so beneficial. And,
Mhm.
to help with certain things like that, I think about like the rape or losing a child or, menopause. Like this is really good. So now with men though, can, like I think it was Gigi had said, helping with, mother wounds. But for men, unfortunately, and I thank God that I am not one of these men, but I know for my fellas out there, it's very tough. You know, reality is, you guys, a lot of men get sexually traumatized as young boys as well. And so, is that something that you help men with in terms of things like that?
Absolutely, yes. I've actually had a handful of male life coaching clients, and we have had to work through that because
Mm,
it's something that affects people in general, but men
yeah,
in a certain way. And the thing is that what I've realized in working and life coaching people in general is that regardless of the experiences that we've had, it pretty much boils down to a worthiness issue, right?
yeah,
And it boils down to people not feeling worthy because of the things that happened to them or the ways that
yeah,
they were protected, or the experiences they've had. And so it's crucial for all of us. And I think it's more normalized for women to do this type of work because it does require a certain level of vulnerability.
yeah.
But we all know that true kings get vulnerable, right? They are in touch with both that masculine and that feminine side because
Yes,
human
speak
being,
it, right? That's
you know,
so true.
every human being has both. And so, as a society, we have been overly masculinized, right?
Yes,
Into
the patriarchal system, yeah.
exactly. Do, action, action, action. And so my work is really about getting back into tapping into that heart space, that intuition, and letting that intuition lead because that's where God is speaking to us from. Is from that feminine aspect, right? Because the masculine is the logic mind, right? But the divine is the feminine, right? The divine is that feminine whisper and that nudge and guiding all of us to say, yes or no. And so, I know that's probably controversial. I'll probably get some flack for that, but it's
No, I
okay.
think no, listen, you know, we have to be authentic and we have to speak truth from our heart and throat chakras, right? And so, it's important for you to do that. And, being the Sag Sun and Gemini Moon, you're all about communication. And then the Taurus rising, it's got to be, hitting them from the throat chakra. So I love that. So this is something that just came to my mind too. And then we can kind of get to some other stuff. But I got to wrap this up with a bow.
Mhm,
You are a mother of 5 kids. My wife and
mhm,
I, we have 4, but I
mhm,
don't have any of the daughters. You do. So,
mhm,
what is the appropriate age
mhm.
if you wanted to have a young lady do this? Do they need to wait to their first menstrual cycle? Or like what's the wheelhouse? And have you ever done this with any of your daughters?
Absolutely, yes. So I first and foremost, as a parent, will say that I think it's very important to be transparent. As soon as your daughters are exploring and wanting to be curious and touch, it's important, I think, to educate our children on what body parts are, what they do, what are the proper names for them, instead of giving them, wee
Oh
wee.
yeah, no, you got to use the proper names, please.
Use the proper names, but naturally, because it was something that I incorporated into my life, my children, my daughters are curious about it. But when I first found it, I immediately had my older daughter start. She had already gone through puberty and started menstruating, but really it's a rite of passage. I think when a little girl has her first menstrual cycle is a perfect time. That's a perfect opportunity to really communicate with her how sacred that time is and how sacred she is and her
Mm,
role is, so that's a great
yes,
segue to really pour in that worth for our daughters and really allow them to understand, like, this is your pot of gold, baby. Like, this
yes.
is the thing that the whole world is after, and you got to protect it and you got to keep it sacred and you have to hold it up on a pedestal because people are going to try to, to go through anything to get access to it. So we
Yeah.
got to really make sure that. So it's a really great segue into starting to, I mean, hopefully you started before the first menstrual cycle, but really pouring that self-worth into young women when they start that, because A lot of other hormonal changes are happening,
Right, right. That's what I'm thinking. That's
Yeah. Mhm.
powerful.
Yes.
Wow. That's powerful. Okay, so everybody talks about, the positive words and the positive self-talk. And I'm big in my transformational program. I'm big on positive affirmations, right? And getting in that mirror. And
Mhm.
one of my taglines is I want all my clients to retire from negative self-talk. That is
Yes.
no longer your job. Hand in the pink slip today. And so tell people, what transformations they can go through when they start thinking and speaking positively to themselves about themselves.
Mhm. Well, I'm gonna try not to get super, super deep, but I will
No,
say,
no, bring it deep. That's how I like it.
okay. So, I am a huge fan of Frederick Dotson, who has written many, many books on levels of energy, parallel universes of self. And so he doesn't specifically speak to this, but I have kind of integrated it into my other research and experience is that your self concept, meaning the way that you view yourself, the way that you speak to yourself, the way that you think of yourself, it highly influences how other people view you and look at you as well,
That's
right?
right.
So if you think that you're a loser and nothing you do ever works out and you always screw everything up, right? That is going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's right.
Okay. And so, but contrasting to that, if you believe that everything you touch turns to gold, that it's always going to work out no matter what, that every day and every way, everything in your life gets better and better, that will also be a self fulfilling prophecy. So the way that you speak to yourself, there are some people who really believe that's the only reality that exists, and that everything else is really just a figment of your imagination. It's an illusion, you
Yep.
know. And I have found that to be a lot of truth in that. In that, the way that and so society is very conditioned to do things for external results and external outcomes. And
Right.
what we have to understand is that if you study all of the greats, whether it be Kobe, whether it be Serena, whether it be, whoever, they saw themselves as that star first. They didn't wait to become a star to start thinking like that. They had to get that image and that self concept. They were drilled by their parents, by Michael Jordan. They were all told, "Hey, this is who you are. I
Yeah.
don't care if we're poor and we're living in the hood right now. I
Yeah.
don't care if we're, you know what I
And
mean."
that visualization of the success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is
And also the preparation, because people think manifestation is just, oh, something's going to fall out of the sky in my lap. No, acting as if means that you are spending years preparing for the outcome that that successful version of you has. So
that's
you
right.
have to be ready when your moment comes to really be able to come up with that proficiency, because you already saw yourself as that before the moment materialized in the 3D world.
Well, I love that you're saying that because what people don't get, right? And I like the reference of these powerful athletes because you hear the story after story, like you know Kobe, Michael, Curry, right?
Mhm.
Curry doesn't become the greatest 3-point shooter of all time without shooting like hundreds of shots a day.
Exactly.
They were saying like he would shoot up so many thousands of shots in the summer when he's off and this and that or whatever. And it's like just to be shooting at like only 36%, percentage from threes, right? So
Mhm.
like he's failing more than he's being successful, but he's preparing,
Exactly.
right? Like 10 times fold, right? To just even get to that percentage. And so I think that we really need to, where people will discredit athletes in sports, no, there's so many life lessons to learn through that, right?
Yes.
Because of the preparation and the detail and the hard work, that prepares you for the success.
Mhm.
So tell people give examples of where people and how people can manifest.
Yeah. So again, manifestation is not necessarily about the things or the circumstance that you want to manifest. It is about the identity, the version of you that has those things. So does your successful version scroll on the phone all day, or are they actually taking care of their body, eating the right things, thinking the right things, hanging around the right people, having the right conversations? So it's not necessarily as much about trying to figure out how it's going to happen or when and how it's going to unfold, but more so making sure that you are that person who it's going to unfold for. And so I would
Walking into your future self, kind of.
walking into your future self. So again, being disciplined, a big thing that I find with my clients and just in general and people is that people don't there's a lot of room for improvement with integrity with their word.
Yes.
If you say that you're going to be somewhere at a certain place, be there. And this is not just about telling other people what you're going to be or do. It's about telling yourself. If I
Holding
tell
yourself accountable.
Yes, hold yourself accountable. If I say, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to cut out the sugar, I'm going to cut out the nonsense, I'm going to go to the gym. Don't let tomorrow come and then you don't do it, because what happens is now you're training your own nervous system and your own subconscious mind not to believe you.
Yep.
And that is more damaging.
And
Yes.
make excuses and let yourself down.
Yeah. And that's the most damaging thing you can do. The most damaging thing you can do to your manifestations is to not be integrity with your word. And I just made a post about this the other day. It's like, if you don't want to do it, don't say you're going to do it. Don't try to have this high standard that you're not. It's better to have a low standard and be honest about it than have a high standard and be dishonest about it. Okay.
Ooh, I love that.
Integrity with yourself. Yeah.
And see, and I love that you said that, because I always tell my audience here, and I said, we have to be, and I love, every time I say it, it makes me laugh internally, but I say I am maniacal intentional. You've got to be intentional with how you live. I'm a very logical, analytical, practical Virgo, right? But I've always had, I say, hashtag deep water faith. And to me, I tell people, for me, grounding and earthing in nature, and putting my feet and my palms on the ground, and connecting to my ancestors, and breath work and toning and speaking in tongues and all these different things. When I don't do it, I feel off.
Yes.
But I do it every day, and guess what? I do it because it works. Exactly. If it didn't work, I wouldn't do it, and I surely wouldn't share it with the collective.
Exactly.
I see the benefits.
Exactly.
Right? I'm a 54-year-old hip hop kid MC from New York City. If you would have told 23 or 29-year-old Eric that I'd be hugging trees, I'd be like, yo, get out of here with that corny stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't curse you, because that wasn't never me, but I'd be like, yo, whatever, you know. And now I'm 54, and I'm like, your dad going, right, I hug trees. And I'm proud to say I do. Okay?
Because why not? See, the thing that people have to really understand about, because we have been taught that we live in an evil universe with a God that is sitting there exacting punishment and getting revenge and deciding who gets blessings and stuff. And the thing we got to understand is that there is a part of God that is internal, right? And we can't externalize that, because then we're giving away our power and we're not taking accountability for our actions. And see, the thing is that we have proof that we live in an abundant universe that wants to give us the desires of our heart. I made a video about this. We have trees all around us. Did anybody pay for trees? We need those to breathe, right? Yeah. Why would the universe give us something that we need to survive and just give it to us in abundance? That alone tells you that the universe wants you to thrive and succeed. We have fruit, we have vegetables, we have all types of things all around us that we didn't pay for, that we didn't build, but we are still reaping the benefits from.
Naturally. Like the sun. We have the sun.
All of it. Air, all of it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's so, oh my God, that's so true. I want to know, does your family sort of agree with and connect with Megan's, integrity and Megan's way and philosophies? Or have you kind of, stepped away from the traditional upbringing, maybe, or however you were raised? Or do mom or dad kind of like, yeah, sweetie, like, you're right, like this is the way we should be doing stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, so I am blessed and fortunate to have supportive parents who are
Mhm.
both still alive too. Thank you, God.
Yeah.
And so my mother, she calls herself my number one client. She calls me her mentor because a lot of our parents, especially I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 1980 to be specific, and a lot of our parents, right? They came up through the Great Depression, so they have a lot of conditioning and programming that there's not enough, it's very scarce. Money doesn't grow on trees. No pain, no gain. All these kind of cliche sayings, right?
Yeah.
Which at that time were true, And so I can definitely say that my mom has been. We've had some clashes over the years, When I tell her, hey, I don't want to hear you go down the rabbit hole of worst case scenario because what you're actually doing is creating it. There was one specific experience where she was visiting me and there was like a winter storm and she was just complaining. Oh, we're going to get stuck in the airport, this and this and that. And she got stuck in the airport. And it was like, she didn't want to hear it at the time. She didn't want to hear me say, hey, don't say that. How about you think positively, because, when you're in that space, it feels good to complain. It feels good to kind of give yourself the space to ruminate on worst case scenario. But something that I talk about on my work a lot is that, especially when we're triggered, we are in a space of either staying on the timeline we're on or shifting to a better one or a worse one because we have that emotional charge behind us.
So
And
true.
so it's so important to really be aware of yourself, bring yourself back into that parasympathetic nervous system through deep breathing, through the heart, through God, right? Because God is through the heart.
Yeah.
Taking that deep breath, coming back down and saying, you know what, I'm open to the possibilities of infinite solutions that God can bring. Even if my mind is telling me, hey, last time this happened, I was messed up in the game. Last time this happened, I was da-da-da-da-da. Because
I
the mind,
love that.
yeah.
And you know what's so powerful about what you just said too? We kind of co-create and manifest these things with our thoughts and words. So
Absolutely.
two things, right? I tell my clients, like, cut it off at the thought. Don't
Yeah.
let it dispense down the escalator and then come out the boca. That's muy
Mhm.
malo, right? Don't speak the negative thought. It's, it happens. We all think them, but then stop it there. Don't let it become the word, because that's frequency and vibration that
Yes.
can manifest the reality to be, right? And then number two, I know I had to go through such deep changes and growth. I kind of joke, Megan. I say I'm a recovering Virgo. I've got a huge Virgo stellium, right?
Yeah, I know about
Sun,
Virgo.
Mars. But
Mhm.
in terms of the worrying, the anxiety, trying to predict the outcomes, but I realized that comes from the trauma of a young boy who life was kind of chaotic. Things were not in control. I couldn't control the situation, right? My father was murdered when I was 6, almost lost my mom at 7. So that's natural, right? But it's not something to stay in. So I had to learn, as I've done so much inner child healing and shadow work, and I think it's a lifelong journey. Just so people know, I don't think you've ever conquered, whatever. You could always find something under the rock, like, "Oh, I didn't hear that," right? So keep on going with that, people. But I think that I don't think I know that when you can let that go, you can exist and breathe in faith and in optimism and in a positive thinking that things are happening for you, not against or to you.
Yes.
It changes everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
It
something you
really
said
does.
about thoughts. The thoughts are always going to be there, right? And another thing I talk about in my work is restructuring that inner authority, because I use the metaphor that the mind is like the manager, but the heart is the CEO. And see, we're letting
Mm.
the manager run the company of our lives, and really
Woo!
we have to allow that CEO, that vision, to be first and foremost priority. And then that tells the manager what tasks to execute, not trying to do tasks to execute the vision, right? It works the other way. But the thing about the thoughts is that thoughts create emotions. And this is why it's so important to monitor and be aware and be able to transform those thoughts, because emotions are the most powerful thing, right? Emotions are energy in motion. So that is the
Yeah.
creative force that we all have. And the main thing feeding those emotions is the thoughts. So getting hold of those thoughts will drastically change your inner emotional state, which will drastically change the circumstances that you see show up in your life.
I love that. Why don't we check back in on the chat?
Yes,
We may have a couple of
absolutely.
questions or comments.
Yes,
That's such a beautiful nugget, and I thank you for for saying that. But
of course.
it's
Of
so
course.
important for us.
Absolutely. So Alana mentions that after having a hysterectomy, not in menopause, what type of urge would you recommend for me? So I would still absolutely recommend the Refresh blend for you, along with the Victorious blend, because you know hysterectomies are a traumatic. Anytime we get any organ removed is a very traumatic experience for our body.
Yeah.
And so the Victorious blend specifically speaks to trauma. So I would definitely recommend that one as well. Good
That's
evening,
beautiful.
Evelyn. Yep, Evelyn Tour says good evening. Hello.
Hey,
Um, yep. Man, Cece Naturally 29 says Mandingo manly herbs. And I remember the one, it's called saw palmetto.
so palmetto. Is that for the mandingo?
That's the Mandingo manly herb.
I love that. That's what I want, Cece. I want the mandingo herbs.
Yes, God. I see your comments, Alana. Alana also mentions she's loving the painting in the background. Who is the artist? So this Ma'at painting was actually done by one of my clients who has turned into a friend. Her name is Hannah Brown. I can give her information. She is an incredible artist. She does
Ooh.
mandalas. She does all kinds of stuff.
I
But
love
yeah,
supporting, the people, the artists, you know what I mean, that
yeah,
are not like these big famous, like that's because we
yeah.
have some beautiful paintings, and my wife, of course, she would notice that because she's like you, the Taurus rising. She's always looking at the aesthetics of stuff and the
Mhm.
art and stuff like that. So that's wow,
Yeah,
yeah, no, that is a beautiful piece.
yeah. She's incredible. So Alana says, yes, I love that. We must walk in and toward the person that we want to be. Exactly. Because the circumstances happen to the identity. They don't happen independently of the identity, right? We have to be the person first before the circumstances conform themselves around. The
Yeah,
Mama
yeah.
Mist says, hey, E. Hey, everybody. Hey,
What's
Mama
up, Mama Miss?
Mist. Alana says the manager versus CEO. What? Yes, yes, God. I love that one. The Mama Miss says, yeah, that was a word. Wish she would repeat that. I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
Probably the CEO is the heart because that's a T-shirt, Megan. I want you to
It is.
sell that. That is a T-shirt, girl,
Mhm.
because the human design prophecy, we will be switching from the solar plexus as a collective in 2027 to the collective vibrating from the heart chakra.
Mhm. Mhm.
The highest frequencies, right, are authenticity, love, gratitude, and joy. So we
Exactly.
have to live authentically from our hearts, speaking our truths and existing in joy.
Absolutely. Exactly. And also, and just to kind of plug this into what I've realized in my own personal journey, in my own life, which is why I love God for just seeing the future before we even get, like, God will have stuff happen to you. And then 20 years later, you'll be like, oh, that's why that happened to me. I get it now.
That's my
So
life story.
yes. So changing my name to being forced, right, to change my name to Yes God Wellness. Now at the point in my work and my journey where I am understanding Christ consciousness and God consciousness and
Yes.
understanding that, the thing with my work is that the way that we can hack our circumstances is to take out the middleman, right? Because humanity is all the things we're doing, all the action that we're taking is all because we're looking for a certain feeling. We're looking for the feeling of worthiness. We're looking for the feeling of success. We're looking for the feeling of enoughness, right? That's what all the yachts and all the fancy bags and cars and houses and things are about, right? Because we want to feel accomplished. And what my work is supposing is to say, how about we just identify as God now? And that means we're already enough. We're already worthy. We're already accomplished. We're already successful. Because when you can identify as that, now your circumstances are going to rush into you, because remember, we're creating from our identity. We're not creating from our effort. So
Mm.
putting the effort into your proper self.
Creating from our identity, not from our effort.
Right.
Woo!
Yes, God.
That's a millionaire mindset flow drop.
Yes,
Yes, God. I love it.
God.
Oh my God. So I see, and I love, and this is part of who you naturally are, who your soul chose to be. The natal birth chart, Megan, is the map of your life and the remembrance of your soul. And your Gemini moon, and being born right around a full moon, your Gemini moon, right? That is part of, because it's in your second house, your self worth and values to speak, yes, God, to speak about positivity, to speak about self-worth and self-love. And so the Gemini moon needs emotional connection through communication. And sometimes it's just Megan talking to Megan.
Exactly. Most times.
Most times. And guess what? That's enough, right? Because like what you just said, if it's not about the effort, it's about kind of really just existing in that frequency and vibration. And that when you are there, then these out external things, right? Because that connection to God's source creator is internal, right? I don't even want to get into the, as I call them, right? Yeshua and the 33 vertebrates and 33 years old and this, that, and that, and the ascended master and all, you know what I mean? Please.
You know what? Yeah, literally, like as you said that. So I also, for anyone who's interested, I had a video go viral about how to pray instead of kind of telling and asking God for the things that we think we want, or how it thinks it's supposed to unfold. Actually being open and saying, God, show me how good it can get. Show me how wonderful life can be. How about you show me the path of least resistance? So I dropped, I have a digital devotional journal called the Millionaire's 33. It's a 33-day seed journal where every day you go through a certain prayer to pray, how to pray from the identity, and then also a journal prompt from that identity as well. So when you said 33, I was like, yeah, I'm on it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's the thing. Wow, that's beautiful. And that's what it's all about. And that's what I always tell my clients too. We don't tell the universe what we want, right? Wanting is a spirit of lack.
Exactly.
You have to already have it.
You gotta give it.
And we can't
The Bible
go.
says it. It says
Right. And we can't go sheeplessly. We'd be a sheep and be, can I please have? No. Like, thank you, God. Yes, God, for granting me and giving me boom. Yes,
Exactly.
God, thank you for
Yes.
receiving this, that.
Yes.
And and I think that we're at a place, right? I explain to people what's happening now, it has to happen. I tell them what's going on in DC and the world, it's really none of your business.
Exactly.
Don't pay attention to the foolishness. Turn off the idiot box. Only vibrate with positive things on social media. If negativity comes up on your social media page, you need to unfollow it, right? Because for me, most of the time, I only see positive things. Right? You have the power. Don't sit there like you're a victim on social media, right? You have the power and the intention. And guess what? Sometimes things will pop up in your feed that maybe you're not even following. And you can You could just turn it off or swipe away. But set the intention and have, just like you have to have a high spiritual hygiene, have good hygiene on IG, TikTok, YouTube. You know what I mean? Don't
and that's why. Yeah, and I'm going to say that's why I have kind of transferred or transformed into a reality selection coach, because just the two words together, you have the authority to select. Yes. And whether you realize it or not, you are always selecting your reality.
All day long.
Always, by what you're giving your attention to, what you're giving your awareness to, and what you're focusing on. And so it's very important. And the thing is that people, they say, oh, well, manifesting it sounds good, but I'm not good at it. No, you just don't want to take accountability for the fact of what you have selected. And this is why the circumstances in your life is what it is right now. Okay, because that requires a level of accountability that a lot of people are not willing to take. It's like, no, I
Ooh,
look
they
at
don't want to cash those checks.
yeah, no, no, you don't want to do that. You want to take credit for the good things that happen in your life, right? But you don't want to take credit for all the crap that has manifested in your life. And it doesn't work like that.
And that's a hard spoon of cod liver oil to swallow.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it's so necessary and so important because, that's what we would talk about in astrology in the birth chart, right? The challenging stuff, the squares and oppositions. And I
Mhm.
say, thank you, God, for those, because that's what pushes you to transform and change and get uncomfortable and step into the new version of yourself, right?
Yes.
If life is so easy and you're the millionaire trust fund and you just got all these trines and you're just sitting on the sofa eating Doritos and Netflix and chill, well, then guess what? That trust fund and the money and all that can run out, and then all of a sudden you got diabetes and you're fat and obese and you got no money and no friends because life was too easy for you. When
Exactly.
we go through changes and transformation and ups and downs, fights and troubles and emotions and heartaches and breaks and depression, anxiety, we have the opportunity to exist with God and gratitude. Not once, and I've been through a lot of my life, not once have I blamed anything or questioned God.
No, I'm not. I will say I have been angry with God before. I have been. I have been furious with God. When in 2006, when I got the phone call that my eldest son's father was shot, and
Mm,
I came to the hospital and realized that he was gone, I was pissed. I
yeah,
was
I
very,
get it.
very angry with God, and so I think that a lot of people may feel that way, but they don't want to admit it.
Yeah,
But I think that owning our emotions and owning our feelings, any conflict in any relationship, whether it's a human relationship or a relationship with God,
yeah,
working through conflict only brings things closer together, right? And
it
so
does. Yeah,
yeah, I had to reconcile that because I was very, very angry with God and I wanted to know why. And
yeah,
and that's the thing that the logic mind, human beings have a tendency of wanting to know who, what, where, when, and why.
yes,
And sometimes, like you said, it's none of our business. It's none of our business to know. It's just ours to navigate and navigate in a way of curiosity that brings us to a higher level. And then we have a responsibility, once we have found a way to navigate that, to go back and share it with the collective so that other people can navigate that as well. So,
that's so beautiful and so true. And I've been, and I say that to you, but that's been as an adult because believe me, um, 6-year-old Eric, when his father was murdered,
mhm,
I really had some issues and questions. And then, it's hard because I had an older sister and my mother, but things were kind of retarded in the sense that I felt responsible
mhm,
for an 11-year-old and a 36-year-old as a 6-year-old,
mhm,
and that's not how it's supposed to be.
mhm.
And so, you know what I mean? So you've got to kind of recalibrate, and you have no tools at 6. You know,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So like, I mean, so I've experienced it on such a deep level where it was a life thing. And
Mhm.
that's where I realized that I had to get out of that trauma of stress, anxiety, and worry
Yes.
because I could not control
Mhm.
events and outcomes.
Exactly.
But I was put in a situation where I felt like I wanted to and I needed to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I mean? And it's very normal. Like, I mean, well,
it,
but then I
it
went
gives
to
us a
counseling
false
and
sense of
therapy. Yeah.
safety. Yeah, it gives us a false sense of safety if we know what's going to happen. But the reality is in life is that you never know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and that's why the only thing that you can control is your own relationship with yourself and your own concept of yourself, which is why it's the main thing you should be investing your time and energy on. Because again, it reflects itself out. Neville Goddard has a framework where it says everyone is you pushed out. So everyone that you encounter or interact with is a certain aspect
Reflections.
of
Yeah.
yourself, is a reflection. Exactly.
Yeah. And we do have control of how we react to things.
Yes,
Because I
absolutely.
can tell you with the valley fever in 2013, and then in 2021, almost died from the COVID Delta, being in coma for 40 days in the hospital for 85 days.
Mm,
I
yeah,
came up and out of it, with nothing but positivity and optimistic, and just was like, I'm going to rebuild. I'm okay. And the gratitude of hugging and kissing my wife and hugging and my boys and feeling the sun on my body. I was just like, you know what I mean? Like, thank you, God, trees and nature. I mean, it was such a reset, you know, and it's not like, you know, I already was the astrologer. I already was on the spiritual path and journey. So it wasn't like some awakening, but it was an awakening in terms of a reintroduction, a recalibration, a new, you know, and then integrating in new spiritual gifts too. So, you know, I think no matter what we go through in life, we always have opportunities to adjust and change how we view ourselves, how we react, and then how we go forward.
Exactly. And pain, right? Pain and trauma we always have the opportunity to perceive pain and trauma as gifts that can deepen our level of gratitude, right? Because like you said, there's no one going to be more grateful for air than someone who has been pushed underwater and held there for a minute and a half, right? Your level of gratitude for that air when you get that first sip, okay? And so that's the thing. It's like you know, and so also just to tie it in with that is that I won't say most human beings, I'm not going to speak that, but taking deep breaths. I don't even like to say meditation because I feel like there's a stigma with that word, but literally giving yourself permission to just only focus on your inhale and your exhale for 5 minutes a day will exponentially change your life, because you are expressing intrinsically a gratitude for your life, because you think you got all these problems, but let something happen to your breathing and you only got one problem. And you only got one problem now after that. So it's like I saw this cartoon one time, and it was two blocks, and one of them, it was two goldfish, and they said, "Hey, let's play a game. You want to pretend to be human?" And the next block was the fish is swimming around and was like, "I have problems. I have problems. I have problems." And I just thought that was so profound and funny. And I'm just like, we really do create all of these problems for ourselves based on first how we perceive ourselves, because we project out. Like if we feel like we're not good enough, we're going to think that everyone else sees that when they look at us, right? And so we're going to be in defense mode. So this is why it's so important, the way that you view yourself, because how you view yourself is going to be how you view other people and how other people view you as well. There's a couple more comments in here.
I was going to say, let's go back to the chat. And then I got like a real deep question after that I want to ask you.
Okay. All right. So Gigi the Empress says, I was diagnosed with menorrhea and recently started using yarrow, but I may be allergic. Okay. I haven't ruled it out yet, but I am doing illumination. Is there an alternative? I've used raspberry tea and nettles. So yarrow is actually one of the herbs that
Can you say that again though? Before you answer, what is that? She said menorrhea?
Yeah, menorrhea is like extreme heavy cycles.
Okay. Sorry, I just didn't know. Okay.
Yeah. So an alternative that has worked well with my clients is actually ginger. They have ginger in capsules. Excuse me. Ginger can help to slow down the bleeding. So if you want to try and take some ginger capsules and see if that works for you. Excuse me. The Mama Mist, the painting was one of the first things I noticed too. Purple and turquoise, my colors. I painted a copper lady with the same colors. Beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Stephen Lascala, good to see you. That's what Alana said.
What's up, Stevie Weezies?
Alana's greeting everybody. She's greeting Mama Mist. Stephen says, you also thanks much. And then Chantel Jones Big B says, well, this is my Easter service right here. Yes, God, resurrected. Remember who we are. Resurrected.
It surely is. You know, that's what it's all about. And listen, it was fitting, right? To have, I mean, there are no accidents, right? To have Megan Macphearson, Yes, God Wellness, on Resurrection Sunday night, and she's a Sagittarius. You know what I mean? That's all divine timing and alignment, you guys. Seriously, and that's what humbles me, Megan. You know what I mean? Because, when we were even trying to connect and we were scheduling and stuff, like it just was all organic, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't no like master plan with this. It just everything when you're in the flow, you guys, you
Yes.
attract like-minded people, but also just the divine timing.
Yes,
And
God.
so I feel very honored, but very humbled by that too. So thank you, Chantel, for recognizing and enjoying.
Yes, God. Yep. And then I think that's it. Alana and Chantel are just greeting each other. They said I'm amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, no, she is. So, okay, couple things.
Mhm.
Give us an example without getting so personal in someone's business, in generalities.
Mhm.
What has been one of your most challenging coaching experiences with a client?
Mm. Challenging coaching experiences.
Whether it's their traumas, their blocks, their refusal to do the work, or just, all the pain, like just something that really was like, you're like, I got to crack this nut.
I think it would definitely be refusal to do the work. One of the things that I walk my clients through is the processing of early childhood and adolescent trauma,
Hmm.
because we have to go there because it is really the foundational building blocks of that self concept, of that identity.
Of everything. Yeah.
Everything. Yep. And so I had one client who I had instructed to kind of work through. I wanted her to process some trauma around her father. And she refused to do it. She said, I can't do it. I started crying and I just couldn't do it. And I was like, and she basically refused to do it. And I could tell that she didn't get the results that she wanted. And it's because she was not willing to do that work. And
That's
I
right.
know it's hard work, it's difficult. It's very
No,
difficult.
it's not easy to heal. And you have to be brave.
Mhm, mhm.
But the outcome can be so life changing if you're willing to put in the work.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
find in this day and age, Megan, to be honest with you, unfortunately, it's changing. I think the scales are balancing, but there's so many people that want the spiritual hack and the quick fix, the biohack. Get healed in 5 minutes. Get fixed in 2 weeks. Get
Yeah.
fixed in 1 hour session. Like, no, you guys, those are the people that, I mean, I'm not hating on anyone. I don't talk bad about other astrologers or other light workers or spiritual healers, but you also have to be careful because there are a lot of people who are not authentic in doing this work,
Mhm,
and are in it just for the money. This is now a $1 billion industry
mhm,
and growing.
mhm.
With Pluto and Aquarius, it's only going to grow
Yeah.
and grow.
Yes, God.
And you, amen, right? And you want to get with people that are going to challenge you, that are
Yes.
going to speak to you with love, but authentically. And maybe it may make you feel uncomfortable. But
Yes.
on the other side of uncomfortable is the healing and transformation. So please
Exactly.
know, if you're coming to Megan or you're coming to me, that if we're asking you to do something, it is only for your benefit,
Mhm. Exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's deep. So they really did they when you were done with them, they kind of just felt they voice that they felt unsatisfied?
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, also what I noticed with this particular client was that they would come back to me with all of these beautiful, brilliant testimonies about all this serendipitous things. And they were just kind of like, yeah, that happened. There was not a lot of gratitude there.
Ah,
It was, because unfortunately, there's a lot of people, when you don't process your trauma, typically that results into someone who feels like life owes them something.
yes.
And that a person who feels like life owes them something tends to overlook the forest for the trees. And so they have all these blessings and beautiful things happening to them. And they're kind of like, yeah, 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 but I still don't have this and this and that.
Right, right. And guess what? You got to appreciate the glass of water before you can appreciate the
Yeah,
Cristal and champagne.
exactly. 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 And so, she was a challenging client to work with. But I still I understand that sometimes you can plant seeds, but the soil has to be fertile and soft. And, if someone is not willing to till their soil and aerate it and pull up the weeds and pull up the things that are growing there that they're not happy with, um, which is their trauma, like, because the thing is that all of us have a soil that was created when we were born, and that is our God consciousness. That because God consciousness is affirmative, okay? It's a very objective. So whatever it is that you say that you are, you are. It's not going to argue with you. It's not going to go back and forth. So
I
if
love that.
you want to have this identity of a victim, okay,
Mm-hmm.
God consciousness is going to say, okay, so be it. Your wish is my command. And so this is why it's so important to pull our own selves out of that victim lens and give ourselves the identity of the victor, of someone who has, yes, these things have happened to me, but
I rock.
even still, I resurrect my God consciousness and I resurrect my creator identity.
And for the collective right now, Megan, it's going to be a lot easier. Neptune is in Aries. It moved in on March 30th. It has been in Pisces since
Mm,
2011. And that increases
mm,
the victim mentality,
yes.
the cancer culture, the why is me, all that
Mhm,
stuff, like, oh, don't say that word.
mhm,
It's this and that, right? And you know, and for me, like you said, right, an 80s baby, and I'm a 70s baby. Like I was, I noticed because that was like right around, I call it the Twitter age.
mhm,
Started 2010, Neptune went to Pisces 2011. And, Neptune does these long transits. It's 164, 165 years around the birth chart. And so we will retrograde back on October 22nd. And then
mhm,
it will permanently go in, I think, early February until 2039.
mhm.
But a lot of that energy of Neptune and Aries, it's going to dissolve, which is what the planet does, that victim, that self-sacrificing, that
Yes, God.
um, all that stuff,
Good,
and the delusion, the lies to ourselves, the
mhm,
deception and the confusion, right?
good.
From all of it, from the media and the television. When
Mhm,
Neptune's in Aries, it's about sovereignty. It's about really kind of walking into your I am. It's going to be about everybody's going to be on this health kick. I got to get strong. I got to be, you know what I mean? But it
yes.
also calms down the Aries energy,
Yeah.
in terms of making us a little bit more compassionate and empathetic.
Mhm. Yes.
So that's the positive of it. But I think that um, what I want to ask you is really, I'm going to just get vulnerable for a second and be personal about this, right?
Yeah.
My beautiful wife is in the chat, and we went through a time where unfortunately we lost a few babies.
Mm,
And I wanted to find out, I know what you said with the ladies, but could the yoni or certain things, because I think that this is where men get left out.
mhm,
What about the men healing and dealing with those traumas too?
mhm,
Because think of it, right? It's upfront and personal for a woman
mhm.
because it's in her,
Right.
right? So I'm not saying that it's uh, you know it's different, but it's much more intense for a woman.
Yeah.
But because it's not a part of the man,
Mhm,
it's external, but it can be, maybe just as bad because it's like he feels helpless.
mhm,
He can't fix it. He can't protect.
mhm,
He can't be the man.
mhm.
He's the watcher. He's the seer. He's the voyeur in that sense, but
Yeah.
he still has that loss.
Yeah.
So, what would be your recommendation, whether it's yoni or just, any mental hacks or just or talks, whatever? Like,
Yeah.
what do you think about that subject?
Yeah. I think that it's important for us and men especially to hold space for themselves to be vulnerable, to really allow themselves to get in touch with those emotions because like you said, a patriarchal society kind of shuns that and shuns really any type of emotional processing, whether it's men or women, but especially men. And I think that men need to, or it would help men to find other like minded men who are willing to do that work of being vulnerable
Mm,
so that they can be in community with that, right? Because there's work that you can do with your partner in that type of circumstance, but then there's also individual work that has to be done as well to be able to go through your own individual process, right? And so I think that it's important to, just like anything, anything that we're going through in life, it's important to find like-minded people who, the key is to be flexible and curious about your pain and your trauma versus shutting down because of it. Okay.
I love that. Flexible and curious about your trauma.
Mhm.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to make a t-shirt line tonight? That's how my brain thinks, though. I'm very creative. So I'm like,
You've mentioned that a couple times, and I actually have one of my clients is actually, I've outsourced that to her. That's her thing. She loves to create, and so we have a meeting in a couple weeks to go over some of my different apparel ideas and different sayings and things. But
yeah, that's what I'm in the process of doing that, because I've got my catchphrases and different things, and so that's why I think about that. But like, seriously, like that is like, it's so poignant, but it's powerful. You know what I mean? And these are phrases and terminologies and sayings that I could only see. Like if I saw you wearing that on a shirt, I'd be like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, okay, girl, I see you. You know what I mean? Because we need that, right? Like, Hallmark is not the end all be all to like cards or, because I used to think when I was young, I was like, I could do cards better than this. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? But I love that. So thank you for that answer, because I wanted to share that because it's real.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, no, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. For me, I mean, it was, for me, it was all about, wifey in that sense. But I definitely, you're right. And for me, I know one of the major ways that I healed was communication with her, but also, being able to share with a few brothers, but also the sword, the pen. Writing about it. And for me, I take things to rhyme or to music, or, you know what I mean? But writing, and that, I think in a lot of ways, men, we give birth to, but it has to be from the root and the heart in terms of what we create. And so I am a constant creator. Whether it's the astrology, the screenplay, the play, the, sketch comedy characters, rhymes, and so that has always been my saving grace and outlet. And I think I remember one time I really felt like I had written myself out of depression because I had to kind of get out of this space of the circumstances that I was in. And I know for me, that was through, pouring out from my heart, to the pen and pad. So
There's a book called The Artist's Way, and
I read that. Yep.
And
I have that book. Yep.
Yeah. So I literally have cardboard boxes full of journals, and I can honestly say that
it's the best.
Writing has been the number one tool for me to process, to create, to heal. I mean, writing is it, because the thing about writing is just, it is, again, and someone asked me here, Mama Miss said, what are Meg's big three?
She's the Sag Sun, Gemini Moon, and Taurus Rising.
Okay, that's what she meant, because I was going to say my big three are focus, awareness, and attention.
There you go.
Those are the big three
focus,
things.
awareness, and attention.
And so what writing does...
Oh, wait, stop. I just thought of something. I don't mean to be rude, excuse me.
It's okay.
Say focus, awareness, and attention.
Yes.
Focus is the Taurus Rising. Awareness and attention.
Which one would you give which? Because Sag...
Awareness I would give to the Sag Sun.
Me too. I would too.
Yep. And the intention to
I would give to the
Gemini Moon. Yep. And so there you go. So now you can turn that into another shirt for you personally, right? That's part of your brand and your big three placements.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I was going to tie it into writing, because writing, right, gives it is the instrument that allows us to channel that focus, that awareness, and that attention.
Surely does.
And those are the three things that we are using to select our reality, whether we're aware of it or not. And so it would be helpful for us to be aware of it and go down that rabbit hole so that we can be selecting with more intention.
Okay. So I mentioned, and I was kind of, I want to just tie up that thought because I got this big question to ask you as we start to wind down. So we're leaving the Piscean age and we're in the precipice. We're brave souls, right? Coming to Earth, but coming at this time to help pour the cement. We're kind of like pinky toe. When you're at the beach and the ocean comes up and the sand's wet, that's where we are right now, the age of Aquarius. Literally just pinky toe in the wet sand. We're not even in the ocean yet. And so then that means our souls, we've got to lay down this foundation, right? Through the AI, through this, big changes, through the uncomfortable stuff. And, it's a wonky, uncomfortable transition. Just like as we said goodbye to Pluto Capricorn, and now we're in Pluto Aquarius to 2044. And we're ascending from the 3D to the 5D. And, people are like, oh, what does that really mean? And this and that, right? But I wanted to ask you, what would be, and I don't like this term, but I think it's a term that can, kind of organize this thought and the question. What would be like the tip or the biohack that you would say at this time in 2025, April 20th, with all that's going along for the collective, what would be the, 1 or 2 or 3 steps that you would recommend to someone to take to literally transform their lives for the better permanently?
Yes. The first tip I would say is that it doesn't matter if you love a thing or hate a thing. If you feel strongly about it, it's all the same as loving it. Okay, so stop the complaining. Stop the banter about who you hate, the president, this, that, all these things. Just remove your attention away from it. Okay, because the reality is that you have no control over it.
That's right.
You don't. So that would be my first thing, is to understand that the universe operates on pendulums. So whether you're on the good side or the bad side, if you're on that pendulum, baby, you're feeding it. Okay. So stop feeding the thing. All right. Get off the pendulum and go focus your energy somewhere else where it's actually going to give you a return on your investment.
Ooh, the ROI.
Yeah. That would be the first thing, is to be very, again, careful about your attention, your awareness, and your focus, because whatever you're giving it to, whether you feel negatively or positively about it, you are fueling it. Okay. Donald Trump had enough fuel with all the people that hated him to win. Okay. This is what people are not understanding,
No.
So, okay, that's one.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is that the world sees you how you see yourself. So start to see yourself as the divine, amazing, perfect, whole, worthy, and enough being that you are.
Yes, God.
You are not your experiences. You are not your trauma. You're not. That's not your identity. Those are things that have happened to you that have the opportunity to give you wisdom. That's it. It's not something you need to identify with. And then the third thing I would say is that it's not your fault, some of the trauma that you experience, but it is your responsibility to reconcile it. So those are my 3.
I love it.
Yes, God.
Oh, God, I love it. Because it is that simple. I want you guys to really think and really watch this show back, because you may not realize what Megan and I have just verbally exchanged, but there are anywhere from a good 7 to 13 gems that you can attach to your body to go forward with, that really lead to healing, love, self-love, and transformation. And so please, you guys, make sure, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go follow her on YouTube, IG, you're on TikTok, Yes God Wellness, everywhere, right?
Yeah. Yes God Wellness everywhere. Now, this content on TikTok, the only deviation is on TikTok, it's Everything is Perfect Life. That's the only deviation. But on Instagram, it's Yes God
Say the name again on TikTok.
Everything is perfect life.
Oh, everything is perfect life. Okay. And what's the website again?
The website it's stanstore/Yes God Wellness, or you can just go to yesgodwellness.com.
Okay. Okay. YesGuyWellness.com. Okay.
Mhm.
And make sure you guys like and share, but do me a favor. Come back after we're done and write comments and just give it, because I want this not only just to grow in the algorithms, but I want you on this beautiful Resurrection Sunday to share this, because you know we're at such a time, Megan, right, where the veil is so thin and people are spiritually starving, and they're being pulled in to this uh, like hijacking and looshing of our energies by the media, by the television, by the left and right and red and blue and Trump and chaos, right? That you don't need. You
Exactly.
need to listen to your intuition. You need to listen to your heart, right? You need to be positive and be intentional. And so sharing this at this time, you may have a cousin, a friend, a coworker, a boss, an ex, a parent, an aunt, a niece, nephew, right? Anybody
Yeah.
that could hear this, and it could just be that little thing that sparks the curiosity in them, be like, wow, I resonated with her. She's brilliant. I want to, connect with her. Like, oh wow, he seems like a deep, cool dude. I want to get a birth chart. You know what I mean? Because sometimes transforming and changing our lives, it's one step in a new direction.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It could just be one step. And so I really implore and encourage people, but also never give up.
Exactly.
Life could be heading the wrong way for a good 20, 30, 40 years. And then one little turn, one little shift, you can change everything overnight.
Literally. It
You know
literally
what I mean?
takes a
One step in a different direction can lead you on a whole, and then you wake up 5 years later, you don't even remember that old person.
Mhm. Exactly.
So I want you just to check in with the chat before we go. Any last couple questions or comments?
Yeah.
But this has been so powerful, and I just thank you. It's been
Yes.
great.
So let's see. That's something I've been reminding. The Mama Miss says that's something I've been reminding myself of this week, is that I'm not what happened to me. I came here with an identity, value, and character. Exactly.
Yes,
And it is divine.
yes,
That's it. The end. Like there is no
yeah.
other. We don't need to concern ourselves with anything else, because when you can truly grasp that and you start to affirm yourself that way and you start to see yourself in that way, life starts to see you in that way as well.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yes, God.
Anybody else?
I don't see anything else.
So remind them that they can do a call with you, right?
They can do a call with me, yes. So I do have a Calendly link, and they can. We do a discovery call for 30 minutes to see if we're a good fit for coaching. I did just put my link in the chat. I didn't see it pop up in ours, but I am on your live stream on YouTube. So I did just put my Stand Store link in the chat, in the live chat.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I think you may have put it in the restream chat that is not, it doesn't go to the YouTube. So yeah, and
No, I put it on the YouTube side, but I don't see it coming up in the restream chat. So I don't know.
okay, okay. Well, I'm sure it will probably pop up. But that's great, and that's what it's all about, you guys. And definitely follow her on the platform. She's a fun follow. Okay, Megan is a fun, and see, and that's what I love, right? Because you know what's so funny?
Thank you.
People will see different creators, right, on IG or TikTok, and they don't think that they're necessarily authentic or real or human, right? You're a mother, you're a woman, you know what I mean? You've got these kids, you're doing all these things, but someone could have their own idea of just seeing you on this. Oh, she this or well, you know what I mean? And it's like, you guys, people are real. They're tangible, right? You know what I mean? And that's why it's so good to like get off of, I think of sometimes I find YouTube to be a little bit more more substance and more real than IG and TikTok, because it's just quick hitting. Like it's just this brief little things, right? And
Yeah.
you're like this full-fledged color photo human that
Yeah.
we got to meet tonight. And that's what's so important.
Yeah.
So I want you guys to realize, like, clearly Megan's got a lot to offer. So you want to connect and get that millionaire mindset and flow. And so I just want to ask you this though. So what would you say to somebody if they're like, you know what, I'm trying to build my business and become a millionaire?
Mhm.
What's the words that they need to, start to think or create to take those steps?
The first thing I would say, which is counterintuitive, is surrender. Surrender into what it is that your purpose is, because your purpose is going to bring you your millions. Okay. If you're hating what you're doing, it doesn't matter how much money it brings you, because you're not going to have peace. And so, it's not just about the millions, it's about the millions and feeling good at the same time and having an actual fruitful life at the same time. There's a couple more comments.
Okay, yeah.
So my IG is Yes God Wellness. And then I also on YouTube, I'm Yes God Wellness, but I just started and launched my podcast, which I have 2 episodes up there already. It's called the Yes God Cast. So on YouTube, you can check out the Yes God Cast. That's also on Instagram. And then Janice Montag says, first Sabali Pure says, first Quintella Interstanding says, grand evening, Eric, Megan, and Knowledge is Love Astrology Podcast family. Peace.
Hey, Quintella, you're late, girl. You missed it. You better watch the replay and make sure you guys comment, because this was powerful, Quintella.
Yes, God.
Yes.
And then Sabali Pure says, this has been a beautiful and needed conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah.
Janice Montag says, drop the mic on this and this entire interview. No words to express how impactful this has been. Megan.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think you're new, so please come back, and thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you. So many gems to pick up on and run with. The Mama Miss says, I like her. She's funny. I'm so funny, y'all. I'm holding it together and being professional for this interview, but I'm
Oh yeah, she's funny. We cracked up a couple times talking. But Sagittarius and Gemini, like
we're
funny. Like it's just you're gonna naturally be funny.
Yeah, I'm very silly. Very silly. Sabali, aka Alana, I hate I came late. Okay. Oh, that's good. Your purpose will bring you millions. Yes. And also your pain is tied to your purpose, because how you navigated your pain is your purpose. And that's why you have to navigate it. You can't just stuff it down and suppress it and not work through your trauma.
Yes, because you gotta find your purpose. If you don't acknowledge and go through and deal with that pain, it's going to be so much harder for you to walk in and find your purpose.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yep. She said, I'm already following apparently on IG as LOL. That's what the Mama Miss said. She's
That's great. Oh my God. Well, listen, thank you, Miss Megan. This has been an honor and a pleasure, and we will definitely have to do it again. And maybe I'll have to be a part of the Yes God cast sometime, because that sounds like it's going to be awesome. And I wish you nothing but the best with that. And I'm sure it will be just as amazing as what I already see on IG and TikTok. So I really appreciate it, you guys. Please go and support and follow this woman. Go take care of the yoni.
Yes.
and just really be intentional. Live and walk and love and purpose, and be your true authentic selves, vibrating from the heart chakra with gratitude and love. And it is that simple. But don't bite off more than you can, forget chew, swallow, right? Take baby steps, and don't beat yourself up. This is not about perfection. You know, don't let, some of the spiritual people you see, they make you feel guilty because you're not this and you're not like, no, 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 no. You need to, like she said, right? Just go with your breath.
Exactly.
Even if you start off 3 minutes a day, then build it up. It's spiritual muscles, not
Exactly.
just these physical ones, the spiritual ones, you know?
Chantel Jones Bigby says, do you believe your purpose is one thing? Absolutely not. We have
More than one thing.
Yeah.
Woof.
We have several purposes depending on, what the room needs that you're in at the time. And so this is why awareness is important, and to be open to the multifaceted divine solutions, because through you, right, God can use you as a vessel to spread the word.
And I thank her for asking that question, because that comes from a mindset, right, of the patriarchal system.
Yes.
Oh, go to college, get a job, have a 9 to 5. You're a banker, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're your school teacher. What? I'm like 10 things.
Exactly. I'm infinite.
And my purpose is infinite. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm an actor, a writer, an astrologer, an MC, a father, a husband, like, and my heart and intention is in every one of them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, we have got to stop limiting ourselves. That is more of a I don't want to say certain things, get myself in trouble, but that is a patriarchal system mindset. That is a colonization mindset. Okay.
And not everyone is here to have a grandiose purpose. Sometimes your purpose can be being a great parent. That is important. Okay.
It is. Wait. It is more than important. It is huge. It's bigly.
Yes, exactly.
It's so important, and never devalue that. You know what I mean? I mean, being a good or a great mother, that is priceless.
Yes.
Because it gets generations, you guys.
Exactly.
That's legacy. That's your 10th house, opposite the 4th, the mother, right? So please, always know your purpose is greater than you could ever imagine.
Yes.
And Chantel knows that. It's just a great question. Chantel, I'm not. Chantel she's dynamic and she's great, And she was at Coffee Talk this weekend. We had a great time. So you guys, I don't want to kidnap Miss Megan forever. She's got kiddos, but this has been a pleasure.
Thank you. And
we definitely have to connect again in the future. And I want to just invite everybody. Happy Taurus season. The Taurus birth chart sale has begun. So even Miss Megan can get a birth chart done, right? For Taurus, sun, moon, and rising signs. It doesn't end until May 21st. And my mom was a Taurus sun. So, I definitely think about her. And I've got a lot of great Tauruses in my life, including the Taurus rising, my wife, and now my new friend, Megan, Taurus rising. But for all you Tauruses, hit me up, eric@BigEAstro.com. And I will return for episode 330 Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, with Miss Rebecca Vidanoff. And that's going to be really, really fun in the Akasha. She's a channeler and, psychic, and taps into the Akashic records. So we're going to have a lot of fun with some live readings and stuff. But Megan, wow. Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
Yes,
I really appreciate it. Yes, God. That you gotta have me thinking about that all the time. And it's so funny. Oh, that makes me think of but it's actually Dear God. But when you say the yes, God, it makes me think about that song from the Roots and Black Thought. Dear God, dun, 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 dun. So it makes me think about that. So I really, really appreciate it. And I always think in song. I can't help it. So
me too.
But this has been fun. You guys have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful Resurrection Sunday. All right. Thank you for watching Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast with the